Thank you very much, and thank you all for having me. You guys really don't understand how important it is to be here. I believe it or not, Spain was like a bucket list destination for me. I've been wanting to come here since I was able to read Hemingway, and thankfully, thanks to all the bars and everything, it hasn't disappointed on that front. We're going to talk a little bit about mobile first indexing and a few other things today. And first, I really wanted to kind of set the tone and make sure we understand like what mobile first is. Let's talk about it from a definition standpoint. And I'm pressing the wrong thing. So basically, Google sent out a really great definition for it back in 2016, November 2016. So we've known this is coming, right? It's not something where Google, in their typical fashion, just kind of showed up the week before and said, hey, we're going to start doing this. No, it's actually something they've been talking about for years because they know it was going to be a big issue. And it was really this idea that with so many mobile phones and everything that's out there where it's kind of dominating the way things work these days, it's basically Google pushing us forward to basically say, hey, look, because we know this is coming and because we know it's going to continue to get larger and larger, we're just going to start really looking at the mobile versions of your site. When we start indexing everything and start to really kind of ignore the desktop side if we can. The really good news, though, is that mobile first doesn't mean mobile only. So if you actually get yourself in an instance where you've actually don't have a mobile version of your site, or if your site isn't necessarily optimized for mobile or some variation on that, it'll still continue to index the desktop version. So you're still safe. It's not going to go away when this starts to implement. You're not going to evaporate. You're not going to show up, disappear from the index or anything like that. It's all going to be it's all going to be okay, basically is the way to put it. And the big question is just like, when is this actually going to start happening? It actually just started. So this screenshot is actually of a note that shows up in Google Search Console from last week. And this was like the first reported instance that showed up on Search Engine Watch that somebody captured. And so it's already starting to roll out. It's not something that you've got months and months to do it. Believe it or not, we actually originally heard it was going to start about in July of this year in the US. And it looks like they've already started to pull the trigger on that side. So welcome to it. Welcome to the mobile first index world. You're here. It's all happening. Look enough. You don't have to worry about too much. I'm going to give you some great tips later in this presentation to kind of prepare yourself. Before I do that, I wanted to talk a little bit like, why does it actually matter? Why do we actually think Google's doing this? What's the big deal here? And the deal is obviously that people just use the hell out of their mobile phones, right? It's just become like the de facto standard of how we actually do things now. You can actually see in this fantastic data here where the checking the smartphones like 150 times a day. Frankly, given the fact that I run a business from my phone half the time, I think that's a little light. My girlfriend tells me I look at my phone way too much, so I think 150 would probably be an improvement for me. More than 1.2 billion people use their web via the mobile devices. It's just a giant number. Mobile time on the screen is about 2.8 hours per day, and again, that's a little light for me. 57% of the time we use our smartphone, we're also using another device. So you've got that multi-screen kind of thing happening. When people are actually at home watching their big televisions, how many people are on their phone at the same time? Just one person? That's a complete lie. All right, thank you. Mobile share of digital in minutes. So here in Spain, a little lighter than us. Just a little bit, but in the back in the U.S. But meanwhile, we're all just shy from Indonesia, which actually I think in Indonesia, I think they've just done away with desktops and laptops these days. But yeah, it's an amazing amount of time that you're actually spending on the mobile side of things as far as your digital share goes. And that's actually created some just bizarre things that people are starting to answer in surveys these days. For instance, more than 3 in 10 would stop seeing their friends in person rather than give up their mobile phone. About a third of Americans would actually give up sex for a year rather than give up for a mobile phone. That's probably a little excessive. 45% they would put off going on a vacation rather than to give up their phone. 46 would be willing to give up a day off per week. It's not going to happen. And more than 55% would rather forego dining out for 12 months rather than give up their mobile phone. Yeah, I get a good shot of that one. And meanwhile, smartphones are actually becoming the most common starting place for online activities. You can see the really big one has to do with e-commerce here, but search is obviously that first one there. 65% are starting it on their mobile phones. Some actually studies I've seen have actually kicked that number up to 70% or larger. And then often it continues on the PC or their tablet. Poor tablets. Remember when tablets were going to be the big thing? They've just kind of like dwindled away at these times as opposed to bigger phones, actually more powerful or getting bigger all the time. But you can kind of see that where you're in this multi-device kind of world where most people are starting these activities on their phone now and finishing them elsewhere. It's just happening more and more and more. 40% of people actually leave non-compatible mobile websites. So this was actually a really big, interesting article I saw a few years back. It was probably the Christmas before last in the States, where you've got people that they really, really wanted to buy things on mobile. Like they were clamoring. They wanted to finish it up. They weren't at home. They wanted to do it when they were thinking about it. They wanted to do it in stars. And they were actually basically saying, like, he goes, we would buy on mobile more if your websites didn't suck so much. Right? You got to get out of their way. You got to make things more and more mobile compatible. Because people are ready. The universe is ready to do it. It's time for you actually to catch up. 74% of search on smartphone while shopping. So this is very common in the States. I've started seeing it a little bit here when I've been out and about the couple days I've been in the country. It's just the way that people are working. It doesn't necessarily mean that that people are switching to buying more with their phones than they are in the real world, by the way. It's just that they're actually using it more for research when they're in person. And there are some really smart companies have actually taken advantage of this. You'll probably start to see some different tags or things that are on products when you're in physical locations where it actually will encourage it. Sometimes they'll give you a QR code or they'll give you short codes or things like that so you can actually do research about the products. We've actually been advising some clients to where what great content that you can actually provide to it. And we've started suggesting that they actually have comparison charts and other things that are available on your mobile phone so that when people are standing in the aisles trying to figure out what to buy, you can see the comparisons right then and there against the other products. I hope you're feeling better. 50% of users are actually purchasing online now. This is just the way things are actually happening. And 73% prefer mobile webs to apps, all right? That's another big change that people didn't see coming. They actually thought apps were going to make all the difference in the world here. Everything was going to be app. But believing that the mobile web is actually just more popular. And then really big things we've got is the Internet of Things. So we've, obviously the previous speaker spoke about this a little bit, so I'm not going to dive into this too much. But the growth in this market has just been staggering. I remember when this was just a concept and it was something that you would see like on the Jetsons or old science fiction movies, but it's just everywhere now. Everybody's having a great times with these things, whether they're watches or the Siri devices or just all kinds of things. It's just everywhere. I've got a freaking scale in my house that's technically part of Internet of Things now that every time I get on this thing and my phone yells at me later for not paying attention to my diet. And then obviously we've got all the different devices here. Obviously there was a great presentation before that where we started using these things. Then you've got them all on your phone, everything that's out there that you can use in these areas. I was going to ask because I didn't see this question before. So things like Alexa and Google Home and everything. How many people have a device like that in their home right now? That's a pretty good share. So I've got 5 of them. In my house because I'm just that person, right? So I feel like I've got one in my every room. I've actually got one out back in my patio area so that I can mostly listen to music. I've got Cortana on my TV because it's part of the Xbox, and a few other devices around. And I'm a bachelor, so it's just me in the house. So I must look like a crazy person walking around just talking to the walls all day. But it's pretty amazing. When I actually do have like a human come over and I start doing these things, it just the responses I get for things is hilarious.